Welcome back to The Manual, a podcast where we talk about the stuff most men's podcasts are too afraid to touch. Today's episode is going to be wild, raw, and real. Buckle up. What is up, y'all? Welcome back to The Manual podcast. We're super excited for today. We got a ton of stuff coming, some hot takes, some reactions, talking about some deep stuff, integration, body, mind, spirit. And then a couple crazy things that are happening out in the world that we're hoping to get to today. Nick, first and foremost, how are you doing right now? And I don't want good or fine as an answer.
Well, Joe, I wasn't ready for us to go that deep that quickly.
We do it to guys every single day in our coaching process. Nick, I want to know, how are you?
How am I? Doing well. Yesterday we celebrated the life of my deceased uncle. Funerals, if done well, can be super powerful. I think there can be a tendency to shy away from the reality of death and to kind of even like whitewash over it of just, let's just celebrate their life and not acknowledge that this was not a part of plan A. Like death was never a part of the plan. And there's a reason grieving is experienced and we need to go through the grieving process. So just a rich day yesterday. Father's story at Cure of ours in Overland Park. He does such a good job of honoring the reality of what's happening, but also the deeper hope that we experience. Why? Because of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ that we've been born, buried into and risen into. So rich with all family in town, so I'm still kind of riding away from that. So doing well. Excited for round 3 here. Third time's a charm.
Let's go. I'm curious, how do you experience, because we talk so much about the physical body, right, and identifying and being able to build self-awareness around emotion. How do you experience the physical state of being well, of doing well? What does that feel like in your body?
Well, integrated, present, aware that my feet are touching the ground right now. I think also it's this aware of the other, meaning I'm not self-conscious. I'm listening to the other person as I'm present with them. So it's this kind of self-mastery, but that's not the right word, self-possession that leads to a focus on what's in front of me, what's outside of me, the subject in front of me. What are you hearing as I say that?
No, it resonate deeply with it. I so oftentimes with mentors or people that I've gone there regularly with in therapy or other places at different times in my life, oftentimes it identified good emotion as the absence of the bad, right? Oftentimes it is like clarity, lightness, openness, like a sort of expansive-ness in my head, like clarity, sharpness. But oftentimes it feels like the absence and the sort of an openness. It's like the opposite of a bad thing. The opposite of narrow feels like open. Yep. Right? But you're not so acutely aware. And I love what you just said there is just like the awareness of the other, the capacity to be able to be so fully present to what's in front of you that you're almost not aware. You don't need to be aware of all that's within you to be able to have that kind of presence. Yeah. So I appreciate your definition of being present, because I think that's just it. It's like to be well, to be doing well has little to do with the external realities, to the extent that they don't trigger us into a fight or flight response or some sort of tension or anxiety or whatever that negative emotion would be. And that we can live more and more of our lives the more integrated and healed and transformed we become to experience this state of presence.
Yeah.
Which I think really is it. So I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you appreciating that.
Well, I appreciate your appreciation for my appreciation.
How's Coach Joe coming to the call today?
Yeah. I appreciate you doing that, so we didn't have to do that a fourth time is how I'm doing right now. I'm doing well. I'm feeling grounded and present. And I had a conversation with a really close buddy of mine this morning, a close friend. I mean, like brother in the most Christian sense of the word, someone who's walked through very important parts of my story and means a great deal to me. We've just had some tension and friction, misunderstanding, miscommunication. That's kind of like that just needed to be resolved. And had a really healing, restorative conversation this morning. And I experienced the increase of the tension and the defensiveness in that conversation.
In the midst of it?
In the midst of it.
Yeah.
Because there was so much misunderstanding. Like, that's not what I said. That's not what I did. That's like, he asked me, like, can I just explain my experience and can you just hold it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was good for me. I experienced leaving that was really good for me. Because
the withholding of reacting to what was going on,
even to have a conversation that you move from, because going into the conversation, honestly, I kind of felt like this is your problem, not mine. Like, what do you need from me for us to be good?
Right.
You know? And that's not totally true. So I think I had to acknowledge along the way that there are things that I'm concerned about, upset about, frustrated with, hurt by. Mm-hmm. And for us also to come to the resolution of, for him to be able to look at me at a really deep level and kind of with both of us having, like, you know, tears in our eyes, if you will, of like, I care about you and I see you and I love you and I want, and I like just the experience of connection. And so I think I'm sitting with that of sitting with the experience of connection, and it very similar to you. It just feels like presence. Yeah. It feels like I'm here. I'm in the moment. Clarity, and it wasn't because I walked into that conversation with the lack of that, but the conversation stirred up a lot of stuff in me that I think, I mean, part of me, frankly, oftentimes, just because of the way that I was raised and the way that I'm wired, downplays the weight of a lot of things. And so at one point in the conversation, he said to me, like, I don't want to, essentially he said,
we're all trying to figure out who you're talking about. So give
you
us some
oftentimes
juicy
don't
details.
bring your stuff, you don't bring your stuff to the table. And I want to know. And so I think it's been a good point of reflection for me of like, because I think a lot of times I believe that I take stuff in and let stuff go and insert trust in other people. To a certain extent, I think that's true. But then when there's conflict, I can easily, well, you've done this, you know? And so it's been a really good healing. Yeah, I'm not going to say his name. I'll hold that.
Let's get him on the
confidence.
podcast next week.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'll have him on and
Round
we'll
2.
workshop this.
So
it just was
making sure we got everything unearthed.
Yeah. No, it was just a good, it's the wave of discomfort, right?
Yeah.
It starts to build. It reaches its peak. If you're willing to sit in it, it begins to dissipate. And then there's that deep level of connection you didn't know that could exist. That deep level of presence.
Yeah,
that
that's
you didn't
only
know you could
available
have. And
if you walk through things like this.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, it's like doing a cold plunge, right? You feel okay before you cold plunge. Being in the cold plunge is like, why am I doing this? This sucks. I'm never doing this again. And then after the cold plunge, you're like, I didn't know I could feel this good. You know? Yeah. Like, I didn't know I could be this locked in, right? And so it's that. And certainly, I think to the human brain and to the way that we're wired as human beings, human relationship and connection is deeper than just the dopamine high of a cold plunge. And so there's such, I think it's just, I'm feeling the depth and the meaning. And the cool part of that is it makes me think about other places in my life where I need to do that kind of work, and has it created an openness to me to be able to continue to do it.
It's really good. That's really good. I think, it's like, where are those, even listeners, as you're listening to this, like, what are those areas? And I would say any area in your life that there is a sense of unwillingness to engage.
Yeah.
That is
what are you avoiding, right?
Yeah. And that's where the gold is.
Right.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we need people, for the avoiders out there, we need people in our life who are willing or who are wired to not avoid. And that's what I need. I need people who want to engage, because it confronts my avoidance. And that's not to say that I put it on them to do that for the rest of my life, but it helps me develop the skill of identifying avoidance and leaning into it.
Has Krista played that role at all in your life?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, she is a see it, call it out, confront it. She totally is a confronter.
We walk away, slam the door. She's like, I'm coming in there. But she probably could also give you, that's not actually but there's also times like, hey, give me some space. Totally. There's an art to it, right?
Totally.
There's a pushing in, but also realizing, hey, maybe space is helpful for now, but we're also going to not push this under the rug.
Totally. And there's a certain kind of beginning, again, another aspect which I brought up in this conversation from this morning, of learning to ask for what you need. It's like Krista and I just had our husband-wife meeting last night, and we were talking about we're about to have baby number 4. Isaiah just finished his cancer treatment officially on Monday with his last dose of chemo. It's like there's a lot of change, a lot of transition, a lot of how are we going to set ourselves up for success? What do you need? What do I need? And that's like, what do we need to plan for in the future? And then what do we need in different moments when we're carrying, for me, anxiety and overwhelm? And like to your point about space, is like, I need to learn how to ask for space. Hey, can I go on a walk? Hey, can I get 20 minutes after we clean up the dishes?
Yeah.
And a lot of times I get frustrated because I experience her not being willing to give that to me and being demanding. But really, that's not what she's doing. She's just trying to get stuff done and accomplish what needs to be done and in front of her so that she can be at rest. And I'm just not asking for what I need.
Yeah.
In the midst of all of that. And if I would ask for it, she'd be more willing and able to actually respond to it.
Yep.
The other coach on our team often says to me as we talk about needs and identifying inner needs or core needs, is that it is one of the most difficult thing, I think, for the average man to do, to deeply understand, what do I need, like for the next year, in the next week or the next month? Even thinking about that, what do I need during my wife's maternity leave to be able to continue to work, to make progress, to continue to experience myself being able to lock in and give to my family in a different way in that season? What do I need? You've challenged me on that, of what does it look like to carve out different key moments throughout a day so that you can put it away and be fully present, right? So what do I need in the future, which is really good? And then when I'm in it, when I'm in the stuff, what do I need in that moment? Right? And then asking for what you legitimately need, that is frankly scary.
It's vulnerable
for most of us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I think that's because of fear of rejection, fear of feeling weak.
Yeah.
Right? So we'd rather just stuff it and then figure out how to get what we need on our own.
Yep.
Which usually comes out pretty sideways, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we get too far in, now that we're really far in, I'm curious what's coming up for us this week, this next month in the Freedom Group, some of the things we're building. Nick, why don't you tell the listeners about what we're launching?
Yeah, we got a few things cooking. The most exciting, one of the exciting things is the KingMakers Community. The applications are live. They're officially live now, so we'll put a link to that in the show notes. So ultimately, I've discovered that, like, who are the men that you become close to, and why do you become close to them? I would propose to you, it's the guys that you're running shoulder to shoulder with and you're building something with. Like, men are builders, and we're called to grow and to move. So if you're ready to step into a brotherhood built on that, on purpose, on planning, on personal growth, on mindset growth, and actually expanding your influence in your sphere of influence, we propose to you that this might be your next move. So in the community, in the KingMakers community, we help you craft an operating system for your life, a grid for you to work from a 30,000-foot view down to boots on the ground, to really getting practical, to actually measure, are you moving forward with what you said you're going to move forward with in your life? So my question for you is how would your life look like? Different would it look for you now if you had a vision for your life, along with the core values and ideals that make you stand tall with your shoulders back? What would change if you had a concrete plan, for the next 1-3 years of your life that actually energized you and got you out of the bed in the morning? What would happen if you didn't have to build a life alone, that other men actually had your back and held you accountable for and supported you in, and even pushed back, and helped you like discover what are your legitimate needs in this season of your life? So I want to invite you guys to apply to that. KingMakers Community launches this July. We're pumped for it.
Yeah, I love that. For me, Nick, and I think you could probably resonate, is like I've been a pretender for so long in my life. I'm good at pretending. The first half of what we do in the KingMakers Community in terms of the onboarding phase and the planning, the 30,000-foot view to about 10, I'm really good at. I'm an idea guy. I'm a visionary. Like,
we could wordsmith the crap out of it.
Value, like I'm all in. Right? Yeah. But then okay, so what does that mean for the next year of your life?
Yeah.
And then let's talk about it every month.
Right.
Are you doing it? Are you engaging the hard stuff? That's the stuff I hide from. That's the stuff I don't want you to see, because if I'm being honest, no. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how to get there. I don't know how to get traction to where I want to be in a year. And honestly, usually two things I've found as I've engaged a similar process in my own life, it's way more clear than I think it is, like easier to accomplish if I get clear on what do I want a year from now? What do I need to do a year from now to be able to get closer to that dream outcome?
Yep.
And then what do I need to be able to actually make it happen? And a huge part of that is what you said at the beginning. It's the brotherhood. It's the community. It's somebody else seeing. And that's so massive. So I'm excited about that, because for the guys out there that have trouble with the vision, the calling, the 30,000-foot view to 10,000, like, let's go. Let's get clarity on that stuff. And then your traction, your discipline, your habits that you're already living are going to just click into order. And then if you're more like me, where all of that stuff gets muddied and you ebb and flow and you're hot and you're cold and you're yes and you're no and you're in and you're out, good song
you're
lyrics.
Up and you're down.
That's right. All of that stuff begins to become ordered and challenged and seen in relationship to where you set out to go, and other people can actually help you get there.
Yeah. So if you guys didn't check out the podcast last week, Mark, our coach, is going to be steering that ship. Super excited to have Mark leading us. We'll be on the calls as well, but Mark's going to be walking us through that operating system, building it out, and leading those calls on, I think it's Monday nights. I don't know if that's official, but we're looking at
super good.
Yeah.
On that note, or on a similar note, we just closed another wait list for a Freedom Group, and we turned around and launched another one because guys are already hopping on board saying, I want porn out of my life. I'm done experiencing craving. I'm ready to do the deep work, and I want to go there. And they've identified our process as being a meaningful way to be able to do that. We say at the end of every discovery call, we don't care if you do our thing. Just don't do nothing. Don't leave this call and go back to the same process, because you just identified it's not working. It's not helping you get there. No, and so if that's you, if you're dealing with craving, pornography in your life, if there are habits that need to be broken so that you can walk into a new era in your life of freedom and healing, we got a wait list. You hop on a discovery call with Nick or I. We hear your story, figure out with you, not for you, with you, if this would be a good fit. We explain the whole process, the way that we work and operate, what makes us unique, answer any questions you have, walk you through a few practicals, and then the invitation at the end of that call is to join the wait list. If you're ready, if you're hungry for this, and if this is the right fit for you. And as soon as that wait list is full, we launch another group and off we go. So we'd love to talk with you. You can go to our website. There's a bunch of discovery call links. You can fill out a porn use assessment if you're not ready to talk, to actually figure out for yourself sort of a baseline level of where are things at for me today, right? We're huge proponents that self-awareness is the thing that leads to self-mastery and ultimately self-gift. And so increasing self-awareness, where am I at today? How bad is it? How painful is it? That's a necessary part of the beginning process to actually change, is to see the way things currently are more clearly. So you can do that if you're not ready. But we'd also encourage you to schedule a call with us. We don't think we're that intimidating. We think we're pretty fun. We think we're even pretty helpful. I don't know. At least I am.
Nah, I mean, yeah, Joe. You're pretty great on video, at least.
Hey, thanks, guy.
In person, you stand a little too close and bust my bubble, but
good point.
I'm like, that's far enough, sir.
It's the deep eye contact that I've heard is real destabilizing. That's the goal. If I had your eye color, Nick,
people wouldn't stand a chance.
That's right. I'd have people running out the door. All right. On that note, we also have our Outbound. Our coach, Chris, is leading a group of guys this July into the wild. Real mountains, real challenge, real change. Chris, as you can agree, Nick, is a total G. He spent a ton of time in the wilderness and mountains from early childhood. It's been a huge part of being fathered by God himself, is being out in the wilderness. And he's taken a select group of guys out to experience the wild, encounter the end of themselves, and to experience deep healing. One of the best, if not the best, storytellers I've ever met in my life. Yeah. Man's man, the kind of guy other guys want to be like and get around, and that alone changes things. So we want to encourage you, if you need that in your life, to get bold enough to sign up for it and to go. It's going to be an immensely impactful time. So you can check out the show notes or the links in our social media bios, wherever you're listening to this, to be able to learn more information. You can also just go to the freedomgroup.co to learn more. All right, with the time we have left today, I want to talk about integration, about wholeness, about holiness. Because I think we find ourselves in a day and a time in the church in particular, but also in the world, where there's been this massive pendulum swing, right? We've heard it said over and over again that we're sort of in a post-apostolic age or a post-Christian world, where the values and the belief systems that used to be normal in everyday American life, or really across the globe, are no longer the norm, are no longer sort of the modus operandi, right? And so we find ourselves in that context, but really, what has changed? And when I look at what has changed in people's behavior, attitude, longing, what they're searching for, is what I think is a pendulum swing from holiness as the ultimate goal or value to wholeness being the goal and objective. And I think we see this in the rise of the health and wellness industry and people's obsession of eating right, of exercise and diet and taking care of their physical body and image and appearance. And where is all that stuff coming from? And I think really, if we look at the landscape of where our generations have been raised from, in a context where so many people went to church on Sunday and 50% of their parents got divorced, had conflict to the point, or addiction to the point, or disorder to the point that they could no longer remain in human relationship and it was over. Right? And that's an extreme example, but a very relevant and prevalent example of the kind of friction and lack of wholeness that I think so many of the people, I mean, you and I have spent pretty much all of our professional lives in ministry. This is the common thread that runs through every individual story who's trying to do faith, and those that we know that have walked away from it, is I'm done with the whitewashed tomb. I don't want the exterior, we're all good, white picket fence thing while the inside the home burns. I want to figure out how to do it. And so I think there's been this pendulum swing in culture to try to get wholeness without holiness, right? To get sort of wholeness and being okay and being one with the universe and some of these more extreme, like New Age or even Eastern religions, their rise is because there's this longing and hunger which was put there at the beginning of time to be in order, right? And we know that, as so is often the case, is that the virtue is in the middle, right? And that's why one of my favorite verse in Scripture, I think, speaks to this. And I I think this is at the core of the work that we're trying to do in terms of the biblical grounding and focus is what's said in 1 Thessalonians 5:23 and 24, where it says, "May the God who is whole and holy make you whole and holy, put you together, body, mind, and spirit. If he said it, he'll do it," which I love that last line. If he said it, he'll do it. It's like, nah, dude. He's going to do it. He's good for it, right? He's the faithful one. And I think the beautiful invitation of the season that we're living in is we're done with holiness if it doesn't come with wholeness as well. And God's invitation, what he wants for his children, is both. And even more than that, you can't have one without the other, right?
Right.
You can't experience deep and true holiness, oneness with God, the image of the Creator, the transcendent, without experiencing the integration of wholeness coming along with it. Or it just becomes increasingly, I think all of us probably know people like that, where there seems to be a great fracture between one's capacity for sort of their human nature and to be with other people and to be in union, and then like the externals of holiness, religious participation, attending things, praying a ton, right? And again, those things I think necessarily try to gear a person, but they don't always automatically guarantee that you'll get there if we don't have a vision at the beginning of what's the ultimate goal and objective. So I'm curious your initial thoughts on that. I know I just said a lot and there's so much to unpack here.
Yeah.
But I'm curious what's coming to mind for you as I say all that.
There's a lot there. Yeah, okay. Words are powerful. What do we mean by holiness, and what do we mean by becoming whole? They're both synonymous, and they probably play their own part. One thing that is interesting is he will do it. I do always wrestle with this. I wrestle with this, God's going to do it. I wrestle with we can do nothing apart from God. But what's our role in it? How are we called to participate? I think God said to Augustine, or Jesus said to Augustine, "I created you without you, but I will not save you without you." Like, it's all grace and our full response to grace. And I love even just that word save. Like the Greek word sozo, it means to save, to heal, and deliver. To be saved from something, to be delivered from something, or to save, heal, and deliver. And that's both physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And this is getting back to the original intention. We said it earlier on this call that death was not a part of the original plan. So what is the original plan? Full, complete reintegration between ourselves and God.
Yep.
Between ourselves and ourselves, right? This reintegration of body and soul, spirit, mind, heart, will, between us and others, and us and the cosmos, literally physical creation. The four fractures, I think I first learned this from Dr. Bob Schutz, that the four fractures that came from the fall were between us and ourselves, us and others, us and God, and then us and nature. And that's holiness. And Jesus says that you might be made perfect, right? What is that word? Again, Greek words. I love words. Words are powerful. Teleos, that you might be complete, perfect, complete, made whole. Like the end for which you were created, and is to become fully human. Sometimes we say, it's only my humanity or my human nature. Well, it's the fallen human nature, our true humanity, to become. Jesus was the fully human person. Yep. And so how do we allow the lordship of Jesus Christ and the reigning of him and me stepping into our kingship over every part of my life? My mental game, my physical game, my spiritual, my emotional, my relational, my financial, everything.
It brings, I appreciate, because you went to what's our role in all of this, and then trying to sort out what's the spiritual reality undergirding the point. What's the goal of all of this? What are we doing here, right?
Yeah.
And I've really been challenged in this season of us walking through with our son's cancer diagnosis and the treatment because it's holding the tension of, do I really believe that that cancer is evil and demonic, and like kind of like the Bethel Church, or maybe not Encounter Ministries fully, but believing that I should want to pray for him to be physically healed.
Yeah.
And is that the ultimate goal of this season of our life, is for us to just get in every single day and to be worshiping and banging the tambourine and to be shaking, hallelujah, right? Like to be going, like that's the goal. Like we will continue to be faithful and to believe in his total healing. Well, what happens if he's not?
Right.
And what happens if that's not God's will? And so how to hold intention, and we've had this very clearly throughout the whole thing, and this is the reason why, because very early on and throughout the whole thing, we've prayed regularly over him when he's asleep. Both my wife and I laying hands on him, praying for full healing, praying for protection as he goes through chemo, that it would hurt the bad cells and protect the good cells, praying for him to be totally restored through whatever method God wants to use. That and holding on to hope that is possible. And part of our grounding, at least my conviction for that, is because in a week's time, one of my best buddies, Brother Austin Reardon with the Brotherhood of Hope, was one of my college roommates and is now a religious brother, was praying with him in the early months after he came home from his brain surgery. It was a few weeks after he came home from the 2 brain surgeries he had, and he's at home and recovering. And so we're just trying to grapple with like what to do, how to operate, what to believe. What do I think about all this stuff? Right? Is God allowing this, or is it totally evil and I should try to pray it away? Right? Like what's the goal here? And he had a vision as he was praying of and just couldn't get out of his head, and he his words were, I don't see this sort of thing very often, or I haven't recently. But I see Isaiah walking totally normal again, like completely fine. And that's been the biggest limitation through all of this, is sort of the biggest external symptom is his significant bilateral weakness and shakiness. Ataxia on the left side of his body, where his hand shakes pretty significantly. He squints his left eye a lot, and his left leg sort of he trips on it a lot, struggles to run, that sort of thing. And so and treatment certainly hasn't helped with that, getting drugs and chemo and all that sort of stuff. Its effect on his muscular cells and being able to build that back up and all that. So I held on to that. And then a couple days later, my daughter, she's still 8, she was 8 at the time, has a dream. She sees Isaiah coming out of our bedroom totally fine. Like nothing ever happened. And those were her words, like completely back to normal. So I hold on to that. Like maybe that is going to happen. I do hope that happens. And what if God wants us to go through this? What if God wants him to develop a kind of emotional resilience to pain and hardship that he's willing for our good?
I like that word too. He's willing to allow to happen. This willingness.
Yeah, and not that because I don't have that vision of God anymore, by the grace of God, that he's a father that is sort of like passive, could give a rip about my life, that I'm out of, that I believe he intimately cares about me and my son, that he loves me dearly. Mm-hmm. But I also hold that he's doing something in me, that if Isaiah was healed, and in him and in my wife and in our family, that in the spiritual world, in the physical world, in our emotional lives, in the way we see things mentally, a kind of commitment to framing and reframing hardship and pain and discomfort in our lives, that's created a kind of depth that I would never be able to experience if I didn't go through this, unless by some miracle. that God just gave it to me. And so I've experienced the benefit of going through this. Now, would I wish this on anybody? No. Would I wish this on him again? Absolutely not.
Right.
But I've often, in reflecting on his own life as his father, like, what do I want from my boy? I want him at some point in his life to be initiated into manhood, to know that life is hard, that it's not all about you, that there's a bigger purpose and point to this reality, to have emotional resilience, to be able to go through hard things, to be able to continue to press forward when nothing is working, when it feels like everything is falling apart, to have the mental, emotional, physical resolve to keep going, right? And do I have the opportunity to create that for him at 6 years old, if he doesn't go through this? I don't know. And so I say all that to say, really, like, integration to me is in this situation, is to hold on to the hope and belief that God is faithful, that healing is possible, that I should desire and worship and believe that my son can be completely and totally healed. And at the same time, not make that the sole point or objective of my walk in life and how I'm leading. That the goal is to believe with sort of all of myself that it has to happen. And if it doesn't, I'm not living in heaven here on earth. That I'm not participating in the Our Father, praying in earnest that he would bring the realities of heaven. Maybe this is us going through this in its totality is exactly how he issues heaven here on earth. Right? Not seeing the immediate, because I do think that there's a certain kind of thing, like with miracles in particular, that it is a certain kind of appeal towards immediate gratification. Like, give us heaven now, Lord. And he's like, I'm going to.
Yeah.
Will you stay in it with me?
Yeah.
Will you not get out of the water for a minute? Will you wait? Because for you to carry the weight of heaven, you're going to have strong shoulders.
I ask that from time. I mean, Teresa and I talk about this a lot. She's going through her own health journey, and she was just sharing 2 nights ago her own journey in this necessary surrender, where she's surrendered, because anything can become idolatrous, even the seeking of a good thing, right? Yeah. Healing, physical healing. But early on, our kids still pray for healing, and it's cute as hell when they lay hands on somebody, an old person, and pray for their hip to be healed, and it's precious, and it's disarming, especially if somebody's like not used to that. It's just, well, they're kids, and it can be powerful too. But early on, they would kind of pray for everything to be healed. And I started thinking, like, what could that do? What could that allow them to miss, to bypass? And it's never either or. We said it earlier. You said the virtue's in the middle, or it's the both and. It's always both and. It's always both and. But if it wasn't, thought experiment, either or, if it was either my kids learn to pray for healing and contend for healing, or shaking the tambourine and going hard for the miracles of heaven to show up at our doorstep every day, if it's either that, or they learn how to suffer well and receive and obtain a crown that's only available through going through the suffering and the character that's forged only through that. If it's either or, I want the latter. Yeah. I want my kids to be able to have a depth of character and broadness of shoulders that can help carry others too. It's not either or. I want the both and, but I there's something available in the suffering, the true redemptive power. I mean, this is, you could, we talk about redemptive suffering in the church a lot, or at least that's a really cool theological concept we have. Yeah. And it's even probably been abused and offered up, and we don't really, but it actually, offer it up requires no mental effort. We actually got to engage it. So that's, even just modern neuroscience unpacking how redemptive suffering is actually working is really, really powerful, and how it actually transforms my life right now. Yep.
Yeah, give me an example. Let's try to get this. We've used some examples from our own life of how we've sorted this out mentally. What's the goal? What's the purpose? What's the frame that I'm operating out of? bring this down for me into the coaching process. As we're working with guys, what are some examples that come to mind to you of how we help guys actually start to lean into this reality? That discomfort, for example, oftentimes the addiction of pornography is the allergy to staying in the hard, to staying in the pain, not even just staying in it begrudgingly, but welcoming it as deeply meaningful. So I'm curious from you, what are some strategies, or maybe there's a couple things that you could give a guy right now who's saying like, yeah, I think I've been approaching what I'm trying to work out in my life, some big pain points or some dream outcomes, with too much of a myopic view of one of these three things. I've been doing it all spiritually, and I don't seem to be making headway, and I can see an obvious lack in my emotional or mental life, in my physical life, right? Give me some examples of things that a guy could do that would really help him start to draw things into better integration.
All right. One thing I regularly try to help a guy connect the dots on is it's not his circumstances that are creating his emotional experience. It's his thoughts about the situation he's in that's so creating it. Right. This is Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Like, in the midst of concentration camp, in the midst of the depths of evil that humanity should never experience, he's like, no, we still have an agency, and I cannot change certain facts, but what I can always change is how I'm viewing it and how I'm thinking about it and what I choose to think about. And it's not an avoidance. It's not choosing to think about something else other than the situation. But okay, so I try to connect the dots between, okay, what are you thinking in this moment? I just had a coaching call earlier today with a guy he's actually, this guy's a priest. He's taking a little bit of sabbatical. He's out west going through some stuff, and he's with a group of people that are not, he's basically in his civvies for a couple months. He's doing his priestly thing, but not his priestly thing. Okay, so he's basically sharing I won't share his story, but he's sharing some things, and the thought he had was, if I share this, these people won't be able to receive me because they don't share the same grid of belief that I have, basically around sexuality and all this stuff. And that was creating this experience of anxiety, of a fear of vulnerability. He felt vulnerable, felt exposed, felt alone. Okay, this thought created this experience of anxiety. And what did that experience of anxiety or fear incline you to do? Okay, so thoughts drive emotions, which drive behavior, whether we lean into something or avoid something. And so what it inclined him to do was to clam up and to not share. And so that perpetuated this vicious cycle of, I can't share, creates anxiety, I don't share, and so we get trapped in this vicious cycle. And until we become aware of the thoughts, we can't take captive those thoughts. We can't, and we, at the end of the day, this is a really hard concept to start believing, but we choose our thoughts. We do. They come from, there's Ignatian spirituality here, there's discernment of spirits, they come from the bad spirit or the good spirit, they can come from us. But at the end of the day, we choose them, and that can be really hard to claim that truth, because they can seem to be so automatic, because we've built the neural pathways so deep that they pop in, and then boom, thought, emotion, action. It's like the liminal spaces you talk about is basically zero. Right. And so, but when we step back in these coaching calls and help a guy observe, become aware of the thought, start prosecuting it, looking at it from different angles, do you want to choose this thought? And it's not just like, well, stop choosing it. It's, okay, next time you're in that moment, because that's going to come up again. Now he's aware, oh, this is a thought I'm having that's definitely creating this emotion and driving this behavior. We can start to lean in, whether, okay, how do we shift that thought? Maybe it's leaning in, doing the opposite of what I want to do, and it's choosing to share. Doing opposite of what I'm inclined to do. Is that?
Oh, it's so good, because it's getting at the point and reality that addiction, and particularly sexual addiction and sexual issues, are intimacy disorders. They're connection problems, maladaptive formation of how we form, break, stabilize, regain connection, and experience deep intimacy. So what you just described is a pattern of self-deprivation around intimacy and connection, driven by thought, right? And our brains are predictive machines, right? It's trying to take evidence or the perception of evidence over our lifetime and assume that in future realities the same thing will occur, right?
Yeah.
The problem is that if we were bullied in high school, there aren't nearly as many bullies doing that sort of thing as an adult.
Right.
But you still show up to relationships as if there are, right? And being bullied by peers as a young person is one of the largest predictors of sexual disorder later in life, right? Same thing with attachment figures. If your attachment figures, usually mom and dad, were not emotionally healthy or emotionally aware or helped you cultivate emotionally closeness and intimacy and brought you into your emotionality well, you have no idea how to do that. And so it just sort of happened. And however it happened is what you've held on to. And without being able to observe and examine, to become acutely self-aware of, oh, that's what's happening to me right now, be able to see it clearly, to your point, it often feels predictive. You know, every guy that's come to our craving-free training system has said at some point it just feels automated.
Right.
Well, yeah.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
That is what's happening. It has become automatic. Your brain is triggered by a familiar core emotional trigger. And like you said, there's no space in between. You immediately jump to the experience of deep craving, locked, tunnel visioned on getting that thing met. There's two sort of classical definitions or experiences of craving. The slow growing sense of impending doom. How long can I outrun this desire to use? Again, even though I don't want it up here, I want it down here. So I'm running from this thing inside me. Or this seemingly coming out of nowhere, slap over the back of the head, tunnel vision need to act out now.
Yeah.
And in both cases, so often our response is to fight or flee in some capacity. Not fight or flee a demon outside of us or fight or flee the pornography, although oftentimes that's the advice we can be given, is to like fight against the porn website or fight against some external force. The problem with that is with two reasons. One, it's not outside of us. To your point, it's in you. It's hardwired in here. And fighting or fleeing only increases your emotional cortex response, verifying that thing is a threat, right? Which we reinforce with our thought life. This is hopeless. I can't outrun it. I'm never going to be able to be free.
Yep.
God, I don't want to have to do this again. Right? And without tools, that thought feeds this lower part of the brain and immediately overruns us, where we give in and then we don't get back up. We live in our shame cycle. We around and around we go, and there's these predictable patterns of behavior or routine, regardless of whatever that destructive pattern is, continues to overtake us. And so I think the example you used is a beautiful one. And it's so applicable, I think, to so many of us, because the common denominator for all of us is that we lack a healthy level of intimacy and connection. And I love the way that you have sort of brought that into the way we teach guys with that. Is intimacy isn't just intimacy with us, with a romantic spouse, right? A romantic partner. Intimacy is my relationship with God. How do I experience intimacy there? Do I?
Yeah.
Intimacy with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Can I be, like you and I just talked about at the beginning of this pod, can I be within myself? Am I at home in my own skin regularly? Or do I spend the vast majority of my life in a fight or flight state? Right? Me and others, romantic, friends, family, extended network, etc., those closest to me, what are those relationships like? What's it like to detach and reattach? How do you show up to those relationships? What do you fear? What do you desire?
Yeah.
All that. And then us in nature. We were created to be in all of this and to have dominion and authority. And most of us go from our beds on the second floor of our homes to our kitchens above the ground into our garage, which is a slab that we put there, into our cars that we built, drive to a workplace that's fabricated by our hands, into a cubicle that has whitewashed walls or tan blah under LED lights that have no benefit to us whatsoever, walk back out to our car, go back into our house, turn on our TV for the next 4 hours, then go to sleep at 11, get 5 hours of sleep and wake up and do it again. And we wonder, even though we go to church on Sunday, we wonder why we experience such a lack of wholeness. You know? Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, maybe that's not the way he created this all to work. And he cares about it. It matters to him that we're disconnected and detached. So like one of the most powerful routines, and we got this from John Eldridge, is to practice stillness. Take 60 minutes, one hour a week, and go out in the woods. Sit down cross-legged on the ground without a stimulating device, your smartwatch, your phone, your laptop, headphones, AirPods. Get away in the quiet and detox. The first 20 minutes feel like hell. If you don't do it regularly, the next 40 minutes feel like presence. And the better you get at practicing presence, the better you get at creating presence when triggers come, and then being able to respond to it with some intentionality, right?
Yeah.
That's sufficient for one day.
Come on.
I think this was a great conversation. We would love to hear what's stirring in y'all. You can comment on this wherever you find that, questions you have about things that we talked about that you'd like us to address in future podcasts, thoughts that you want to contribute. We'd love to share in an upcoming podcast. We know that this community that we're building has a wealth of experience and information. We know that this is stirring in so many people beyond just Nick and I. So we want to have your input, your experience, your thought, and what's coming up in you. What are you desiring? And to the extent that it's applicable to you, we'd love to journey with you and help you out in one way or another. And you can do that in the KingMakers community or in our Craving Free training system. You can find and talk to Nick or I, or if you're lucky enough, the both of us at once.
Come on, flanking from both sides
specifically, but we'd be happy to oblige.
Right. Special request. It's on the hidden menu.
That's right. That's right. Yes, that's right. Get it animal style. You can find that on our website. That wasn't a euphemism. Why don't you chill, guy? Why don't you chill? All right. We've enjoyed hanging out with you guys. We just want you to know that God didn't call you to just think right or believe right. He called you to live and experience reality in right order, body, mind, and spirit. And that's what we're after. And we think that's probably why you're here. If you want to step into that, KingMakers, one of our freedom groups, and Outbound, they're all doors that are wide open right now for you to come and live it with us. We thank you for listening. Subscribe, share, and as always, keep walking in freedom.